Speaker, I note that today Mr. Smith is doubling down on his comments and accusing those who raise concerns about this behaviour of so-called rage farming. He has made clear that he does not see his behaviour as wrong and that he will not relent. Madam Speaker, I hope that all members of this House, along with the many principled and thoughtful members of the press, will be able to stand together in denouncing these kinds of threats and in defending our democracy and the security of public officials from these kinds of statements. While in this case it is my privileges that have been violated, I know that politicians and journalists receive these kinds of threats in other contexts. This case is fairly unique because of the prominence and position of the person making the comments. And when people like Mr. Smith make comments like this, it gives other people a feeling of license to behave in the same way. Under these circumstances, and for the good of all members, the press gallery and the House must take a clear stand. Madam Speaker, if you find this to be a prima facie question of privilege, I am prepared to move the appropriate motion. Thank you.
The honourable member wants to add to this. Okay. The honourable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the same point of privilege from my honourable colleague, I rise in my capacity as the Shadow Minister for Public Safety to bring to your attention the remarks, to further add on the remarks from my colleague about a tweet sent out last night from a member of the Parliamentary Press Gallery that insinuated my honourable colleague, should be shot dead. I think this is incredibly serious, and I would ask that you give it your full attention and investigate further of measures that can be taken, Madam Speaker. And this comes at a time when we're increasingly aware of threats of violence against members of Parliament and politicians of all stripes and all levels of government. This coming at a time when female journalists have felt brave enough to speak out against the violence they are receiving online. This coming at a time where a Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance was threatened very aggressively and harassed over the summer when she was touring Canada. And this coming at a time where politicians, to be honest, I think we've all experienced an aggressive person at the doorway, at events, when we're walking down the street, and we stay quiet. We don't want to seem like we're whining. We don't want to complain about it. And we certainly don't want to encourage others to act in that threatening manner. But I can tell you, Madam Speaker, I have certainly been threatened. I have certainly been aggressively pursued and shouted at by people far larger and very intimidating than me. And you just say, okay, you try to slip away. You try to not encourage them. You shrink yourself down and try to remove yourself from the violent situation. But as the Shadow Minister for Public Safety, I feel that I have a strong responsibility to stand up against the bully that did insinuate violence against my colleague. And now we know in this House we are going to encounter a lot of criticism, sometimes very personal criticism, and we just have to take it, stiff upper lip. We all do. But when someone insinuates that we should be shot dead, that is where a very clear line in the sand must be drawn, and it must be drawn immediately and clearly.
Bravo.
And in particular, this individual is a member of the notable Parliamentary Press Gallery of Canada, which is supposed to be the highest ethical standards of journalism in this country. They are supposed to lead by example. Just as we have a public obligation, they have a public obligation. They have a responsibility to investigate this in full. They have a responsibility to lead by example and send a message that this is completely unacceptable. And Madam Speaker, my colleague mentioned this as well, but this is a man who sent this tweet out that my dear colleague should be shot, or insinuated that he should be shot dead for his question period yesterday. This is a man that could be up in this gallery today, looking down at me, looking down at my colleagues, looking down at Liberal members, NDP members, Bloc members, Green members. When they get up with their courage to ask the questions to the best of their ability, that man could be tweeting out criticism that they should be shot dead, to insinuate that in a tweet. That is unacceptable behavior, Madam Speaker. So I would ask that you ensure this is quickly and swiftly investigated in full, and I would appreciate if the strongest consideration was given that that individual be banned from West Block, and that a discussion be had with the Parliamentary Press Gallery that he be removed from the Parliamentary Press Gallery pending further review or permanently, Madam Speaker. Thank you for your time.
The honourable member for Regina Capel, but I believe you're also the House Leader.
House
yes. Would also like to interject.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for raising this issue, which really affects us all. I mean, it was directed at him, and I certainly sympathize with how that must have felt to see that. A member of the press gallery openly calling for him to be shot after he didn't like the question that was asked. And I just wanted to point out, Madam Speaker, that as we move around the building, in this very building that we're in right now, House administration has put up signs in every hallway and near every entrance to stop harassment. There are signs with a big red stop sign on it, encouraging all who work here, staff, MPs, and visitors, to stop and call out incidents of sexual harassment, bullying, and intimidation. So I just wanted to flag that with you, Madam Speaker, that we have all been seized as an institution here over the last few years. Members must, after every election, take training to make sure that we are aware of the very highest standards of professionalism as to how we conduct ourselves individually, how we structure our offices, and how we expect our staff to interact with each other. And we gladly do that. In fact, members of Parliament from all parties got together to enhance the code of conduct for members and their staff. And as my honourable colleague pointed out, there is a direct relationship with the Parliamentary Press Gallery. Their accreditation for security runs through the House administration. And so I believe it is entirely reasonable for you and the Speaker's office to look into this matter, to find a prima facie case of privilege, to not find a question of privilege, I believe would seriously undermine the efforts that are being made constantly to make this building and this environment more safe and secure. So I sincerely hope that you will find for my honourable colleagues question of privilege, Madam Speaker.
L'honorable député de